This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yeah. Should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He overstands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan.
Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today, a show that we do on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And as part of our celebration, I'll be going to the chat momentarily to find out what it is that people may have picked up earlier today at their LCSs. If you are in the chat and you picked up something really good that you've read that we should put on the top of our reading stacks, I want to know what that book is, and I'll run down a couple of books that I've been reading as of late, all in an attempt, one, to celebrate New Comic Book Day, two, to push back on the false narrative that no one reads comics and there are no good comics that are coming out right now. We are going to continue pushing back on the false narrative because it is factually inaccurate. As part of this show, we're going to be talking about some news and current events. I'm going to have a guest or two on that's going to help me to make sense of something that is happening in the world of comics and collectibles. I'm also going to talk about a couple of things that grate my cheese. One of those things being the notion that money in comics is a bad thing. We are going to talk about that ever so briefly. We're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 manga and also some news out of CGC. In other words, we have a lot that we are going to attempt to get to. And I will go to the chat here momentarily to see what it is that you guys may have picked up at your LCSs. If you picked up some good stuff, again, let me know what you picked up. If you want to shout out your LCS, feel free to do that because LCSs make the world go round. I will highlight a couple of books that I've been reading as of late in an attempt, again, to push back on the false narrative that there's no good stuff. What I'll also say is if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I want to personally invite you. I want to personally invite you that you're looking at me right now to subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. That way you won't miss out on any of the content that I release on the channel. I release videos Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and a live stream on Wednesday, and a lot of shorts, both here and also on Instagram. We also been doing a little bit of content on the Twitters as well. Sacrament from AWA. This book is it's a lot of blasphemy. It's a lot of blasphemy in this book. Blasphemy. Sorry, I had the syllables on the wrong place. Sacrament is definitely for a mature audience. It is an interesting read. I'm not a huge fan of the artwork, but I enjoy the read. AWA is putting out some good stuff. It's only 5 issues. I don't know how much the issues are, but I do enjoy some Sacrament from AWA. Another book that my buddy Mark put me on a while ago that I've been reading and enjoying from Image, Little Monsters. It deals with vampires, specifically little vampires, hence Little Monsters. This is issue 10, gorgeous red cover. Thoroughly enjoy this one about the Nosferatu. Again, a really good read. Not so crazy about the art, but I do enjoy the story that is being told. 2 really good books. And Mark, I'm on a roll, I guess, with Mark. He hit me to this one the other day, Ghost Lore from Boom Studios. This is only issue 1, so I'm still trying to sort out what this one is going to be. Long story short, a father who is a pastor, a preacher, a father, gets into an accident with his daughter, and they suddenly start to see ghosts. They suddenly start to see ghosts. Ghost lore. Issue 1 captured my attention, and I'm going to continue reading this one to see what this story is about. Maybe a little bit of a theme. Sacrament, I just realized, deals with religion. Ghost lore deals with religion. Little Monsters is about the dead. This one technically is about the dead. Maybe there is a theme to the books that I enjoy. I also want to highlight that not one of these books deals with superheroes, capes, or spandex, which is also another false narrative that people are putting out there, that all comics are about spandex, superheroes, capes, and tights. Even though I do enjoy those things, there is more to comics than just those things. Going to the chat, there you go. Steve White's on the board. He says, Ghost lore. It was not a bad read, brother. I mean, for the first issue, it was not a bad read. Man, the awkwardness that is the family in Ghost lore makes me a little uncomfortable, right? It makes me a little uncomfortable. My children are not yet teenagers. I am not looking forward to them becoming teenagers. And maybe that's why I was a little uncomfortable with some of that stuff. Joe is saying, I'm bringing some money tomorrow to Midtown to pick up a bunch of comics. There you go. Ghost lore definitely looks good. Again, life is good. It was not a bad read. It's one of those ones where you read it and you're like, okay, this could either get really good or not. And fingers crossed that they can actually get to it. You also notice we looked at Image, we looked at Boom Studios and AWA. I've said it before, the indies out there are putting out some great content. So even if you don't like what Marvel and DC is doing, the indies are doing some good stuff. I would throw out Swoldier Publishing as well. Just, a little plug for myself. No superheroes. That is blasphemy. Brother, we gotta push back on this narrative, brother. The false narratives that everything is about superheroes is factually inaccurate. It is factually inaccurate. There is a lot more to comics than just superheroes, even though I love some superheroes. Even though I love some Rob, it is good to see you, Rob. But what I don't need is that image in my head of you wearing that. I don't exactly need that in my head. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you, Adam. Welcome to the live stream. Let me see. I'm scrolling through some of the comments. Some interesting comics coming out, but too many for preteens with less violence. Now, here's the challenge. When I read that comments, there are so many people that will say comics need to be aimed at preteens. They need to have less violence. They need to be more universal. They need to be more inclusive. And I mean that in a good way. So I don't know. And I'm making this comparison and contrast because I've been learning a lot about manga, not reading manga. Don't get me wrong. American comics all day. But I have been reading a lot of comments from people on manga. And one of the things that I've heard is that manga has wider appeal among people, which might be part of the reason why manga is selling like crazy. So I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing that comic book publishers are targeting preteens, getting the new generation interested. There's a reason Dog Man sells like nobody's business. Dog Man is redunculous. I read that. I read World Tree. It was okay. It is definitely for mature audiences. Let's just say that. Same thing with Sacrament, a couple of mature audience types of things that folks definitely, you want to be careful about. Brendan says, recently finished Bitterroot Omnibus, blew me away. Highly recommend. Bitterroot's fantastic. I have some of the original artwork. I've interviewed some of the guys involved with Bitterroot. I've spoken to them offline. Bitterroot solid. There is no doubt about that. Scrolling through some of the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Blue Book, somebody's on the board here. Wayne Snyder. Blue Book from Dark Horse. He says, say more about that, brother. Say more about that. I'm guessing you're saying that this is a good book that folks should check out. I may not see the comment, but I definitely want to encourage you to put some texture around Blue Book and why you recommend it. Preteens today have less money than when most of us were preteens. They ain't buying comics at $4. I don't know if I agree with that, Frog Baller. I don't know if I agree with that. I would say preteens have never really had money. They've mostly just reached into the pockets of their parents, and I don't know that parents have less money. Maybe the money goes less further because I don't know. I don't know if preteens have more or less money because in my world I never had money as a preteen. I was broke as a joke outside of bottles that I was cashing from family members. Scrolling down through some of the comments here, Reggie, we had about 14 new preteen titles laid out on Free Comic Book Day. There you go. There again, this is one of those things where people make a lot of general statements about comics and they don't actually look for actual facts, right? Facts actually matter. Details actually matter. General statements and opinions are not facts, right? I believe those are not facts. That is opinion. This is actually a fact. There were 14 pre-titles, and I think that it's great because, again, if you are ever worried about the next generation, you should be applauding preteen titles that are going out there for people, for kids to raise the next generation. Brother, don't worry about it. America all the way. I am not into manga either. My goal with that video that I did on manga was to better understand the advantages that manga has in an attempt to better understand why manga is selling like crazy and to see whether there are some lessons that can be learned from a comic book perspective. And I was planning to get to this a little bit later, but I did have a lot of learning. So I want to applaud every single person that commented on that video that was actually a manga reader. There were several substantive comments that were left on that video that helped me to better understand why manga does well. There were also some misperceptions around comics, one of which, again, is everything is related to superheroes. That is factually inaccurate. It is a gross exaggeration, and that's part of the reason why I started to show off the way that I did. I am all about American comics, no doubt about it. What is that? Went to Nirvana, picked up Gunslinger 20, Miles Morales 5, amongst a few others. I think manga is selling more because of anime craze. Most of those are based on. See, so Carlos, I get that point, but what I don't fully understand is if it's about anime and the appeal of it, one could argue that that the MCU is one of the most successful franchises in the history of movies. Yet it does not translate over to the comics. Now, the question is, why is that? Is that because there is a tighter correlation between manga and anime? It doesn't seem that it's just because of the anime craze, because one could say again that the MCU has been incredibly successful with movies and TV shows. So is it just that, or is it the connection between the print and the movies or the anime that comes out? Is that the reason why? I don't think it's as simple as that, but you guys tell me. You guys sound off. Let me know. Rodney Barnes is killing it with Philadelphia number 30. Pun intended. That's what's up. Blue Book is the story of Tale of Abduction. There we go. Dave's on the board with that one. That Danny Ketch Ghost Rider #1 was dope, says the assassin. I asked my LCS comic book addiction about Free Comic Book Day leftovers, and they donated them to a local school. That, sir, is the right answer. A lot of people think that Free Comic Book Day is actually about free comics. Those comics are actually not free to the LCS. They actually have to pay for those comics. And whenever I hear these stories about people trying to go in and take large amounts of free comics, like, no, the Free Comic Book Day is about trying to expose people that haven't gotten on board with comics to comics, right? So this idea of donating them to a local school, that is the right thing to do. Get the next generation. That is the right thing. Fingers crossed that they separated out the mature titles before donation, because there were some mistakes that were made with Free Comic Book Day, where some children were exposed to some things that they should not have been exposed to. That was probably very awkward for everyone involved. Scrolling through some of the comments here. Let me see. No one image. Wayne, I don't know what you're talking about. Wayne, I don't know. I don't know what that means. The Paradise is in the house. How you doing? It is good to see you. Scrolling through the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. One assumes that preteens want Archie. Some of us enjoy Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Harley, Pacifist. Nothing wrong with that. I will tell you that. I cannot wait for the day that my boy can actually watch MCU movies with me. I am not yet ready for him to be exposed to violence. But at a certain point, I mean, I was the kid watching horror movies at like 5 years of age. But in Detroit, we're raised different. We are a hardy bunch in Detroit. So I'm with you. Chuck, no doubt about it. Steve says he picked up 17 books today. Can't wait to read Avengers #1. That's what's up. Fingers crossed that it's good. I have not heard that there was a new Avengers book, but again, it's part of the reason why we actually do this show is to see what's going on. Scrolling through some of the comments here, got a manga style. Here Comes Calico. Can't read it. Goes back to front, left to right. Shout out to Here Comes Calico from H.H. German. He is doing his thing. I think he's probably on issue 8 by now, probably on episode 8. Miles has been the better Spider-Man read of all the Spider-Verse. You have not lied, sir. You have not lied. Miles Morales is by far the best Spider-Man title that is out there. I started reading Spider-Man, and issue 1 was not bad. Issue 2 didn't enjoy it as much, but I can tell you, Amazing Spider-Man, ungood. It is ungood, and I had a whole debate with somebody last week about this very thing. About why I still continue to buy ASM. I buy it because it's ASM, right? And even though it's not good, I am a Spider-Man fan, so I buy Spider-Man. But I really enjoy what Miles Morales is doing right now. A lot of good stuff. Wayne's on the board here. Order and Outrage, also by Dark Horse. Wayne, I see a theme with the books that you recommend. You seem to enjoy some Dark Horse. Nothing wrong with that. Get ready for this. Pay $2.20 this week in comics. Canceling all of my streaming services today. Good trade, I think. Hey, I don't know that I can disagree with you, brother. I don't know that I can disagree with you. Carlos is on the board here. I believe that anime does stay true to the stories in manga. My son and son-in-law are both anime fans, and I've been reading more manga as a result. There you go. To me, there has to be more than just saying it's this one thing. Maybe it is the direct correlation between the two. And we are probably going to get to some manga stuff a little bit later in the show. So you guys bear with me. I want to talk about this one thing before I have my first guest on. And it's this idea as of late that I've been seeing out there that if you care about money when it comes to comics, you are basically a bad person. That is the gist of a lot of the comments that I see out there. If you care about money, if you think about money, if you buy comics with the intent of those comics going up in value, if you like graded comics, then you are less of a collector. You are less of a real collector because you don't keep your books raw and because you think about value. To me, that is more divisive behavior and divisive language that we don't really need, right? We don't really need to draw more divisions between ourselves when it comes to comics. I like comics a certain way. You like comics a certain way. We should just get along because we both like comics. Now, how we like them, how we read them, how we enjoy them, it really matters not to me. But this idea that because I care about money, then I am lesser than, that I am wrong, it's nonsense. I'll call it what it is. It is nonsense. Because I care about money, I have the collection that I have right now. And what I mean by that is I still have my original collection from my childhood because I cared enough to bag and board my collection. I cared enough to talk to my parents to make sure that they didn't throw my collection away when I went away for college or the 15 years after that. They took care of my collection because I cared about the collection. I cared about the fact that maybe the comic that I own was going to be worth a couple of more dollars than what it was that I paid for. I bagged and boarded my comics because I cared about them, because I read them, because I enjoyed them, because I loved them, and I hoped that maybe they would be worth a couple of extra $200. As an adult, whenever I spend real money to buy a comic for my collection, I think about, how am I spending this money? Does this money make sense? Am I spending this money wisely? Should I be spending it another way? Because I think about money doesn't make me any less of a collector. It actually makes me smart. Because if you're going to spend real money, and it doesn't matter what real money is, if you're going to spend real money, you should give some thought to how you are actually spending that money. That's called like responsibility. That is about being responsible with how you spend your money. It doesn't make me any less of a collector because I think about money. It doesn't make me wrong. It doesn't make me bad in any way, shape, or form. The same way that if you keep your comics raw, that doesn't make you silly. It doesn't take anything away from it. We have to stop creating division amongst ourselves because we do things different. You like raw comics, I like graded comics, but I also have a lot more raw comics. Can we just agree that we like different things, but agree that we have a love for comics? Shouldn't that be enough? That is one of the things that grates my cheese, that the notion that money makes people bad. Money makes you less of a collector. It means that you don't care about the hobby. All nonsense in my book. That is one thing, again, that grates my cheese. The next thing I want to talk about is this wonderful article that popped up on Collider. And I spoke about this recently in a short or a reel or something like that. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 exceeds expectations in second weekend at box office. Let me scroll down on this thing. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 continued its reign at the domestic box office this past weekend. James Gunn's Marvel swan song is exactly what the MCU needed to restore faith in the hearts of its passionate fan base. But did it? That is the question. However, it looks like this Rocket Raccoon-centric trilogy caper has done even better than expected in its second weekend. Volume 3 has made $62.6 million domestically in its second weekend of release, which is over $2 million more than the original estimate. The latter figure was already impressive given its only recent drop of 49% between weekends. The new number represents only a 47% drop. Somebody laughed at that. They said, for only 49%. Yeah, that's actually good considering that more recent movies have realized a 70% drop. And the fact that it was only 49% puts it in the top 5 of Marvel movies. And I think at 47%, it probably puts it in the top 2, which again, top 3 maybe, again, a sign that this is actually a solid movie that people are enjoying. This also means that Volume 3 easily crossed the $200 million mark domestically at $216.5 million globally. The film crossed the $500 million mark to rest at $530.9 million, thanks to markets like China, which contributed almost $60 million. The movie, with this total, bypasses the recent Ant-Man and the Wasp. The entire theatrical run actually made less than what Guardians of the Galaxy has made in the last week or so. And again, I just spoke about the drop, right? The drop that has been seen with the movie, again, at 47% is a good thing. And so I wanted to have a guest on to help me to talk a little bit about what we are seeing here. And I have some hard-hitting questions for my good buddy, Chuck. Chuck, it is good to see you. How are things?
Doing great. How you doing?
Chuck, you saw Guardians of the Galaxy, yes?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of the movie?
We loved it. Absolutely loved it. Now, to be fair, we loved the first two.
Yeah.
So I will give that a obligatory caveat. And by the way, one day I want to be a failure that only creates a movie that only makes $150 million.
You see what I'm saying?
I just want to tell you.
You see what I'm
you
saying?
and I want to team up on that.
Brother, we can split that any way you like, Chuck. Any way you like. Chuck, you sent me a text message. I think, after you guys saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And I want to quote you. It says, Guardians is fantastic. The best Marvel movie since Shang-Chi by far. maybe the best product they have had since WandaVision or Winter Soldier. That is your quote from Instagram that you sent to me. Hopefully I didn't, betray any confidences there.
Nope.
What made this movie fantastic in your mind? What made it good in your mind?
Well, I want to give one caveat. World of Wakanda was just as good, but it was a different type of good. The Black Panther movies are Marvel movies, but they don't feel like Marvel movies because of the vision of their director. Where this movie felt much more like a Marvel movie, action superhero movie. And what made it good was the directing and the cast and the character development. You know, we've known these characters now for what, 12 years, 13 years. We can track how far Star-Lord has come and how far Mantis has come and how far all these people have come. And there was a great payoff there, at least I thought, emotionally. And watching, especially somebody like Nebula, who's come a really long way.
Yeah.
And I think for the fans, there is that payoff for these characters we are emotionally invested in, and they combined it with a fairly coherent story. Now, it is James Gunn, so
I've heard people say that this is potentially one of the best trilogies out there. And some people have even gone so far as to say that this movie was the best of the three that they've seen. What are your thoughts on that? Why are people saying that? Why do they feel that way? Do you feel that way?
I don't know if it's the best. I would put it right. It and one for me are about tied. Okay. So, but for me, what I really, again, you got that climactic payoff with all of these characters. And you're watching Star-Lord's story wrap up, and you're watching Nebula's story kind of wrap up, and you see the big wrap up with Rocket Raccoon, which was so well done. And you're getting a lot of these payoffs for these characters. And again, it's well done. He's got a great cast, and they know what they're doing. And it doesn't feel like the writing was done sort of on the fly. It feels like they walked in with an actual script and shot an actual script.
Yep. What's funny, brother, is I see people trying to discount this movie because it is Rocket Raccoon centric, which I think is kind of silly. People are like, well, it's not really a good movie because it's all about Rocket Raccoon. What do you make of that? Is that nonsense, or is there something there?
No, I think Rocket's a great character. And again, we've had time to build him up. So, if they just brought in Rocket Raccoon out of the blue and said, okay, we're going to do a Guardians movie, but we're going to focus on Rocket Raccoon, you never heard of him beforehand, yes, then that would have been a problem.
Yep.
But here's a character we've seen in the Avengers movies. We've seen all over the place. We've got him bartering for Bucky's arm. I mean, all these things. We like this character.
Yeah.
And, it's been hinted at that something bad happened to him. And here we get the payoff finally.
Yeah. After a while, right?
Exactly, where it felt like with some of the other stuff, like with the Jane Foster Thor, or with some of these other things, there's kind of a payoff, but not really a payoff. And for the fans, from the fan point of view, it's not there to finish it. We're here, we finish the story.
Yep. So compare and contrast a little bit with this movie and maybe some of the recent movies that we've seen. You hit on three, I think, important things. It's the director, it's the cast, and the character development. Do you think that one or more of those things have been missing from the last several movies, and maybe that's why people are saying there hasn't been a good movie since Avengers Endgame? Yes. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a lot of it, where the writing, at least for me, the directing and the writing, especially in Doctor Strange, and also Ant-Man to a certain extent, but Doctor Strange and the last Thor movie really felt like they were much bigger movies that got sort of pared down into a 2-hour time, and then the story didn't make any sense. And you've got all these things that are potential, like America Chavez or Valkyrie's side story or other things, and they don't go anywhere.
Yeah,
and you leave the movie theater going, well, that's great, but where is it? I want this.
Yep.
And with Guardians, you didn't really get that. You got promised a story for Nebula, and you got Nebula's story. You got promised a story for Gamora. You got promised these things, and we got that complete story finished, but within the greater context of the team.
There we go. It's a good point. So to that point, this article hit on the fact that maybe it restored the faith in fans, right? Do you think that Guardians of the Galaxy has restored faith? Do you think that this movie and the success of this movie will silence the critics, or will they just point out the fact that James Gunn is the reason this is successful, and James is no longer part of the MCU, and basically discredit the success that is Guardians of the Galaxy to the MCU?
Well, I think some people might do that. But it's funny because James Gunn used to be a liability, and James Gunn directing used to be a liability. And while I love James Gunn, sometimes it gets a little too Gunniest for me. And he needs to dial it back just a little bit. But the flip side though, Ryan Coogler, when you look at Black Panther 2, that was, and I messed up my text to you, but he put together an incredible movie because you had a singular vision.
Yep.
That was coherent from beginning to end.
Mm.
And so, yes, if Marvel puts that together, my faith is going to be a lot better off. But if we get some weird mishmash where it feels like they threw a bunch of people together because they all stood up at Comic-Con, everyone kind of hung out and struck a deal in the back, the back room before they went on. No.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the Marvels preview for the new Marvels movie looked pretty good. It's a different tone, but I'm also a fan of Kamala Khan. We're not going to discuss that ASM thing. And I'm a fan of Monica Rambeau.
Yeah.
So for me, that's not a hard sell.
I think for a lot of people, brother, that movie is going to be a hard sell. There's a lot of people that are predicting the doom and demise of that movie already. Like, I literally had somebody say Guardians of the Galaxy isn't going to be successful, and people like Guardians of the Galaxy. Therefore, the Marvels is going to be awful because no one cares about the Marvels. Like, they had already written off the Marvels because of what was happening in the first few days of Guardians of the Galaxy being released. And I'm like, how did you connect those dots to come out with that conclusion? It was a stretch.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Marvel hate going on right now. And that's, when you're at the top, everyone takes shots at you when you're at the top. And so the fact that Marvel's shown a little bit of weakness, now you've got everyone just sort of climbing on each other, looking for those gaps. And, Guardians, outside of, some of the stuff with Rocket, was a fairly non-offensive superhero movie.
Yeah.
And so, there wasn't a whole lot there that you could, unless you really wanted to, nitpick and you'll find something to get angry about. There wasn't a whole lot there you could really grab a hold of to say, I'm going to be angry about this.
Yeah.
Where, a lot of the manufactured outrage is already sort of set up for Marvels, and they're just waiting to hit, upload on the video because they already got
that video's already been recorded, brother.
Yeah.
Those posts have already been written. Same thing could be said with Echo. People are basically like, no one asked for Echo. Well, no one asked for Guardians of the Galaxy either when it was originally done. No one asked for Peacemaker either. Like, no one was like, make a Peacemaker. And maybe I shouldn't just cite James Gunn stuff, but the point here is that give it a chance. No one saw the success of Guardians of the Galaxy happening. No one was really reading Guardians of the Galaxy before they made a movie out of it and then had a trilogy. Give me a break. So this fact that no one is asking for Echo does not mean that Echo is going to be bad.
Right.
Fingers crossed that Echo was actually good, and then a lot of people can eat a lot of crow. Thoughts?
Hey, I'll take Echo to be decent for 500, man. I'll take that. But you look at Blue Beetle. Nobody asked for a Jaime Reyes movie.
No
Seriously.
one.
Nobody. But I tell you what, that preview looks like fun.
Yep.
Now, is it going to be a great movie? No. Is it going to win the Oscar awards? Probably not. But you know what? It looks like fun. And if I get a young lady in the chat box there plugging me in while she's working in the movie theater to go see it, that's even better. But Blue Beetle looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I will take that on my superhero movie.
To that point, Chuck, as you look at the landscape of what is happening from or coming out from Marvel, from DC, on the small screen, the big screen, the streaming stuff, what are you excited to see on the horizon?
I'm excited about Blue Beetle.
Right.
I will admit I am excited about the Marvels. I may be one of the only people, but I think it'll be fun. I have some trepidation a little bit with the new Joker movie. No offense. Just not too sure about that one. But I'm excited about the James Gunn universe when we finally get it. Because I think if he has an editor over him and kind of again taking some of that James Gunniness, the over the top James Gunniness,
Yep. Taking that edge off a little bit.
Take that edge off just a little bit. He gets the characters, he gets the archetypes. And what we've not seen outside, at least, not since Feige took over Marvel, is someone who gets the archetypes. I think Feige gets it. He's just spread too thin. Now, I will say, I think Secret Invasion looks awesome.
Yeah.
I've got high hopes for Secret Invasion. So.
It's Samuel, man. So
yeah,
I expect very good things from that one. And some people look down upon the fact that he may drop an F-bomb or an MF bomb or something like that. I bring it on. Like let Samuel be Samuel.
I don't understand how you do a spy movie with Nick Fury and not get a couple of those. I want to flip up the eye patch and have BMF right there on that dude inside the eye patch right there. And then you put it right back down. This is what I'm inspired to do every day.
Chuck, I don't want to see that rotten eye. Okay. I don't want to see that rotten eye. Anyway, Chuck, thank you for coming on, brother, to help me to make sense of this whole Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. I don't know that the success of this movie is going to silence the critics in any way, shape, or form. I think they're going to find something else to complain about, something else to be divisive about. And I think we should just hold our course because there are good movies and shows out there. Not everything is good, but there is definitely some good stuff out there. Chuck, where can people get a hold of you on the social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Chuck Hensley. And I do have a YouTube channel that I need to upload some stuff to now that school's almost done. Thank goodness. So you can find me at Terrific Comics and Pop Culture.
There you go. Chuck, it's good to see you, brother. Thank you always for the insight and for the jokes and laughter. I don't know about that rotten eye, though. I don't know about that one.
Focus on the patch.
I'll see you later, Chuck. Chuck is a nut. He really is a nut. I enjoy talking to him. As soon as he saw Guardians of the Galaxy, he sent me that quote, and that was a while ago. And I didn't really look at it again until today when I was like, "Hey, do you want to come on and talk about Guardians of the Galaxy?" And he was like, "Absolutely." So I'm glad that we were able to make that magic happen. So I want to talk about another thing. And I started talking about this already, the manga stuff. I started to play around earlier by talking about manga. And again, I want to applaud everybody that watched this video and commented on this video to help me to understand manga just a little bit better. And I'm still processing through some of the things that were said in the comment section. But I will tell you, there was one epiphany maybe, and then one misperception that I took away from a lot of what was being said. One of the epiphanies that I had, and I had this, maybe I had this idea going into recording the video because I was doing a little bit of research, is the idea that the stories that go into manga are just well-told stories. They are just solid stories. There is quality there. I think that's a huge part potentially of why manga is successful. It is like one creator's vision, one creator's story, to the point that Chuck just made about Guardians of the Galaxy and about Black Panther. One creator's vision that is cohesive, right? I think that that's part of one of the things that makes manga successful. The other thing that I took away from the story idea was the scope of the stories. It appears that manga covers a lot of ground. Depending upon your age, depending upon your interest, there is a story out there for you, a segment, a genre, if you will, or subgenre within it that you can connect with. And I had somebody, I think, say, if I'm looking for something, I can always find some manga to read. And again, that's why I started off the show by talking a little bit about the misperception that comics, American comics, are just about superheroes is just that. I believe it is a misperception. The success of the MCU is built upon superheroes, capes, spandex, yes, tights, whatever you want to call them. But comics as a whole, when you take a step back from them, aren't just about superheroes. and maybe Marvel and DC are, right? But when you look at AWA, Boom, Scout, Swoldier Publishing, when you look at it at Image, TKO Studios, when you look at like Here Comes Calico, there is a wide spectrum of stories that are being told out there that don't just involve superheroes and spandex. That is a misperception that people have. And I'm going to continue to kind of synthesize through the comments and feedback that were left on this video. If you guys haven't watched it, watch it. There was an article that I was reacting to on CBR that essentially said there are 3 reasons why manga beats comics, and it comes down to cost, low cost. It comes down to availability, specifically the fact that manga is in Barnes and Noble. And the other was the simplicity of the story. And by simplicity, what I'm referring to is that manga is unencumbered by decades of history, by retcons, by crossovers. It is a cohesive story that is being told essentially in the moment. And that's part of what makes them simple and easy for consumers to be able to get on board with them and to access them. So that was what I was reacting to. I felt like those 3 things weren't exactly the reason why manga was successful or is successful. And I, you know, my whole thing is this: let's say that they cut the cost of comics by 50%. Would comics suddenly start selling like manga? The answer is no. No, they wouldn't. It just wouldn't happen because there are some other things at play, potentially the quality of the story that might be missing, the simplicity of onboarding. You don't need to buy 80 different crossovers in order to understand what the heck is going on with manga versus potentially what you get with comics. So I think that there's some things that maybe comics can learn from manga and hopefully get on a much better footing. So again, I'm still processing through that, still trying to understand why manga does what it's doing. I don't know if I'm ever going to read any manga. I've had a couple of people send me recommendations for things to read. I'm all about comics, specifically American comics. I don't know. Maybe I will read some manga at some point. But speaking of quality stories, I wanted to revisit something that I touched on ever so briefly last week. I didn't have a ton of time to really dig into it, but this cover right here, this is the cover of Isolation issue number 4. And my frame of mind, my health was not where it needed to be last week for me to actually have a guest on to talk about this cover. But today is different. Today I am feeling fired up and frisky. And so I want to invite to the show my buddy Dave, the guy that created this with Adam. Dave, it's good to see you, brother.
It's good to see you too, Reggie. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Did you get a new mic?
I'm not sure.
you sound rich. You sound rich.
Okay.
It's a warmth to your voice, a richness, if
I haven't
you will.
talked for a while, so I've got that morning voice going. You know?
Maybe that's it. Dave, it's good to see you. Talk to me about this double homage cover, double homage cover that you have created with Adam. Talk to me about this. How did you create this? What's the story behind this gorgeous red cover?
Oh, well, 1, thank you for the kind words. 2, as fans of yours may remember, I was fortunate enough to get to create an homage to a Black Adam issue by Alex Ross for the Guide to Smart Collecting, what you put out. And I really enjoyed that. And I was thrilled with the opportunity to get to do that. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to do it again. So I had some ideas. I had a few actually, and I was bouncing them off Doug. And I had one that we both liked. I had another one that he's like, I'm not sure about that one. I said, what about Dark Knight Returns, an homage to that? Oh, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I'm thinking, it should be Grey Wolf. And Doug's like, you know what, Dave? I'm thinking it should be Grey Wolf. I'm like, cool, let's do that. So yeah, it's such an iconic piece of artwork. And I've seen a lot of people do homages to that cover. That's, we're not the first.
Right.
But that said, So let's dig into it a little bit. Oh, you have it. Beautiful. Thank you, Reggie.
Yep.
You know, if you take away the trade dress, there are three primary elements to this cover. You've got your silhouette, your lightning bolt, and your dark blue night sky. And what I've seen with other homages is everybody, where they get creative or they get different with it, is with the silhouette.
Mm.
And I wanted to do that too. That was important, but I couldn't figure out why nobody went a different direction with the color of the sky. And I thought, you know what? I think changing that up would really differentiate it from others, make it pop.
Yep.
And you know, red just kind of jumped at me, you know, especially given isolation and this character and what the story's about. Red is, as you
And
were
what
saying,
he did in issue 3
Yeah.
was just bloody.
Yeah.
So it was like a perfect color to use for that.
Absolutely.
Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Grey Wolf made some things happen in issue 3 for those people that haven't read it.
He did. He painted the town red, so in a different way. But you know, as you said last week, you know, red sort of indicates violence,
Yeah.
death, murder, rage, all of those things. And red's also your favorite color, so
It
maybe
is.
you need to seek a therapist. But you know, I
But you
thought-
digress.
I digress. But that's kind of where my head was at. I thought it would look really cool. And the second part of the homage, and I don't know if a double homage has ever been done before. I'm not saying it hasn't. I just don't know if it has.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking that way at first. And actually, I wanted to show you some art. Like, I just started doing some sketches.
Yep.
You know, some things that I thought, here's some preliminary work for. Oh, wrong way.
Other way.
There you
Yeah. There you go.
You know, where my head was at. I actually did one that was a little bit more in line with, you know, with the original Dark
The
Knight.
position of the Dark Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you changed his hair because it looked like his hair was a little wild, and then you saw it and you modified it, right?
Well, here's what happened. Here ended up being so I was trying to figure out the pose. And I honestly don't remember what made me think of Superman 1. I may have been on Key Collector, like, you know, looking up Superman comics and seeing like how not valuable my Superman comics are because they're not Golden Age. But you know, there's Superman. Thank you. The Superman 1. And I'm like, you know what? That's a great pose.
Yep.
And I put knives in the hand. I have to flop it. It's going to be subtle. And I don't know if everyone's going to catch it.
Yep.
But that's the original piece of art I did for it.
Yep.
And my thought process initially when I did it, I saw some of Chase's work. And so I used a different knife in the one hand. And my thinking was, okay, Grey Wolf is in the midst of battle. His braids have come out. The hair is unleashed like he is. So that was my thought process when I created this piece of art. This was going to be the cover. And then, yeah, I showed it to Doug. And Doug's like, well, he's got braids in his hair and it creates a really distinct look. You know, like Batman's ears. I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. I know where my head was at, but I get what you're saying in terms of the iconography, and that really makes it clear that that's Grey Wolf.
Yep.
So I went back, and here's what I did. I bought a batch of tracing paper, and I traced my original.
There you go.
And then changed the hair. So this
There you
is
go.
now the new original artwork for the cover, and this is what Adam used, and that was the thing. You know, this was always going to be with Adam. Adam is a amazing digital artist.
Yeah.
And we talked about, and to give you an idea of how long I've had this idea, I sent Adam some color, you know, some color shots of lightning and red and purple skies on August 12th of 2022.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
so I was
crazy.
thinking about this back then.
That's
and,
crazy.
And Adam did a really cool job with it. And you actually contributed, Reggie.
How did I?
We sent it to you and you liked it.
Oh,
But I think the red was just more straight red.
yeah.
And you said, I don't know how that's going to show up in print.
Yeah.
What can you do with that? And Adam, to his credit, came up with a really cool, whether it was a filter or like a brush effect or something. If you can't maybe necessarily see it on your screen, but you will see it when you buy this book, and hopefully everybody watching this video buys this book.
Yeah.
It has sort of like a rain texture to it, and it just adds to it. And that was because of your suggestion.
And you know why, brother? Because I've learned that doing solid covers, they're never perfect. They
Right.
have defects. And because they have defects in the printing process, I have to throw away a lot of covers.
Okay.
And so my thing is, by not making it so perfectly red or perfectly black or whatever,
Right.
that gives me a little bit of latitude for some imperfections in the printing process, so I don't have to throw stuff away, because that's expensive, right? I
Yeah.
mean, what we're going to do with this cover is we are going to introduce some foil. And I
Okay.
think we're going to make the word isolation in foil, and then maybe even the soldier head down at the bottom. Like, we're still playing around with a couple ideas, getting a feel for what
Okay.
the cost is going to be. But
Right.
we're going to try to do this in a premium way. We're going to
Right.
add some elements to it. And as a result of that, it's probably going to be 3 times as much for me in terms of cost as a
Right.
regular cover.
Yeah.
But it'll add a little something special to it that I think, you know, will enhance what you guys have put together. And I absolutely love it. I think you guys did a really good job. And what's funny, brother, is I didn't know Doug knew about this.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't tell Doug until way later, because I thought it was a surprise. Like, I keep stuff
Okay.
from Doug all the time, right? Because you just never know. You don't want to get the writer too excited. So you just told me just now that he knew way before I thought
Oh,
he
yeah.
knew. So
Yeah, Doug and I mean, we bounce stuff off each other. I mean, we're brothers, you know,
as you
we
should.
do it all the time. So, you know, and like I said, I sort of had a little bit of a different vision for that first piece. And he's like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're
It
right. It's a
came
good call.
together incredibly well, and fingers
thank
crossed
you.
people do it. I think this is cover C. It's cover C, available on swoldierpublishing.com. I actually saw one order just come through a few minutes ago for the cover.
Cool.
So fingers crossed that people
Thank you.
continue to support it. Shout out to Delia and Chase, the 2 artists that are working on the internal pages. Both of them are doing a fantastic job. Delia's portion is done. Chase is continuing to work on his. I've seen some of the pages. They look incredible. Great compliment to what you and Adam have put together. So shout out to you for that, brother. I want to get your opinion of something before I let you go.
Yeah.
You heard the conversation about Guardians of the Galaxy. You saw Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
I did.
What did you think of the movie? Do you think it is the best movie since Avengers Endgame?
Oh, for one thing, Chuck was an amazing guest. And when I watched him, like, oh man, I've got to follow that guy. If he had his own Netflix like stand-up comedy special, it would be in my queue. You know, like, he was great.
Chuck's funny. He's funny.
So congrats to you, Chuck. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was very good. Is it the best since Endgame? I mean, taste is subjective. I thought No Way Home was fantastic too. I would say since Endgame, No Way Home and this Guardians are the 2 that I think belong in that upper echelon.
Yep.
You know, of to me, they're home runs.
Yep.
For Marvel. But I thought James Gunn did a really terrific job. I'm looking forward to what he's going to do with DC. I mean, for anyone who watches like some of the DC watch videos I do with Joe and Lenny, you know, we were super excited for James Gunn. And then the first thing he did is like, I'm going to fire Henry Cavill. And we're like, what? So like, my faith was rocked when that happened.
But
like,
has your faith been renewed as a result of Guardians, or have you just gone through the 5 stages of change and now you're on the other side and you're like excited about James Gunn all over again despite Henry Cavill?
Yeah, no, I mean, he did such a good job that it shows, and it shows that, you know, it's there. The talent's there. You watch his stuff, you see the talent is there. Although you see him use it on more D-list characters rather than A-list. But
why do you think he does that, though? I have my thought. Why do you think he does that?
Free reign, creative free reign.
There you go.
You know, you're boxed in. He even said this a long time ago. I wouldn't want to make a Superman movie because I feel like I'd be constricted.
Yep.
He just had an interview. I believe it was with GQ, and he listed his top 5 comic book films.
I saw it.
Comic book, not superhero.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of non-superhero stuff. To your point, it's not all superheroes. But Superman the movie was his number 2.
Yep.
And as someone who is a huge Superman fan, and the Donner Christopher Reeve film is the reason why I saw that as a kid. To hear him discuss his love for that film and and the way it captures the essence of how he views Superman, that's music to my ears, honestly.
It is apparent that he cares about the source material
Yeah.
and about how it is shown on screen. But
Right.
to your point, my belief with him has always been he deals with the D-list characters because there's less pressure. He
Yeah.
has more control to tell the story that he wants to tell because there's no legacy there. There's no
Yeah.
Rocket Raccoon fan that is like, no,
Right.
it has to be told this way. Most people
Yeah.
are like, Rocket Raccoon, yeah, I know about that, but no one's like a Rocket Raccoon fan like they are a Superman fan. Those are very
Right.
different,
Exactly.
right? There's a
Exactly.
lot of legacy and baggage that
Agreed.
comes with legacy characters.
Agreed. Absolutely. And look, every character is somebody's favorite, but yeah, your contingent of Rocket Raccoon or Vigilante or Peacemaker, it's not
5
up there with
people.
Batman. It's not
It's like
up there with
5 people,
Superman,
brother.
Spider-Man. Yeah, I mean, because I watched Peacemaker and I was reading the Teen Titans, the Wolfman Perez Teen Titans, when Vigilante made his first appearance, and I'm watching Peacemaker. I'm like, that's not what Vigilante's like.
Yeah.
But you let that go pretty quickly because it's not Batman, it's not Spider-Man, it's
Yep.
not Superman.
It's
and you
not
just
Moon
go with
Knight.
it. What's that?
It's not Moon Knight. I mean, there
Yeah,
are
it's
some
Moon Knight.
really big fans of
Oh,
certain
yeah.
characters
Oh,
out there
yeah.
that are like, it's got to be this way, right? So
Yeah.
James operates in this place where no one cares, and that gives him freedom.
It does.
He is about to step into it big with Superman Legacy,
He
right?
is.
I mean,
And I
he
think
is
he
about to
knows
step
it.
into it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think he knows it. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he knows those expectations.
Yep.
And I think it's going to force him to flex some different creative muscles. I'm curious to see what that could be. And I think it could be really good because he produces really good stuff.
Yep.
I mean, I love the first Guardians. That's still my favorite Guardians film. The second one I thought was decent, but not great. I thought
Yeah.
it was kind of like overstuffed and the pacing wasn't great. And there's a lot to like about it. It's a good film. I'm not knocking it.
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was nearly as good as the first one. And now the third one, I thought it was really good. Is it as good as the first one? It's a different kind of film. I don't think I'm giving anything away. The third one's a much darker, heavier film. And it's excellent. It's just it's still Guardians, but it's different. So that really comes down to what you like in movies.
Yep.
And taste and
As you take a step back,
yeah,
and you look at what's coming from Marvel, from DC on the big screen, on the small screen, what are you most excited about, right? As you think about that, what are you going to be in line to see? Either the proverbial line on your sofa or the actual line at the movie theaters.
And that's an entirely different discussion about how streaming's affected movies, all these other things. And that Gunn, when he came out and announced they were rebooting, I'm sorry, like, I really think that hurt the new Shazam film.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of things that did, but that was one of them.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to Shazam, and I really liked it. But that's in the past. I'll move on. The Flash. I'm excited for The Flash. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the others, other films that are coming out. But The Flash is the one you can only hear, this movie's incredible, and that comes from Tom Cruise. That comes from everybody who's seen it. That comes from, you can only hear that so many times and not start to get like amped up by it.
Yep.
Separate the Ezra Miller stuff if you can. But that movie looks really intriguing. And James Gunn said it was one of the best superhero films he's ever seen. So hearing that, it's hard not for me to be excited by it.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think that David Zaslav's comments around The Flash, even before James Gunn being hired, says a lot. He was like, this movie is going to happen. This is a good movie. So, and it's like everything after that has all been super positive, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, to your point, I've heard some people say it's all hype. It's going to end up being another Black Adam. I don't know about that, right?
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, who sends, I heard, wonderful cakes to people, like surprise cakes to people. I mean, he doesn't strike me as a liar, right? So
No.
I don't think he's lying about this. It'll be interesting. I don't know that I appreciate movies and TV shows like a lot of you guys. I think you guys really get into the movies and the TV shows. I take them as they come. If I see it, I'm like, hey, that was good. I just watched Venom for the first time.
All right.
I was like, hey, this is better than I thought it was based upon everything that I've heard, right? I mean, it wasn't great, but I was entertained, right? I was entertained. But it's like I don't really go to theaters, right? I watch the movies when they're on the streaming for free. That's how I enjoy them. But I watch Venom, and I finally watched some of the Spider-Man movies, and I rather enjoyed those. Some were better than others. I will tell you.
Of course.
I think it's Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire. Andrew Garfield. I think he's a better Spider-Man. Right.
I
So
agree.
I'm still living in the past. I'm not really ready for the future just yet, you know?
Yeah, I like Andrew more than Tobey. Not to knock Tobey, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed Andrew Garfield in the role more.
It wasn't Tobey, not so much. Not so much. The tone of the movies with him in it, I did not enjoy them. I didn't, you know?
Well, as someone who's read a lot of Spider-Man comics, he didn't, and it's not necessarily Tobey Maguire, because there's the writing, there's the directing.
Yes.
To me, Peter Parker has a lot of anger inside because of what happened to his uncle.
Everything.
True. And I just didn't feel like that was there with him. Like he wasn't the angry young Peter.
Frustrated. Frustrated. Yeah.
It just no, those characters did not feel like they fell off the comic book page for me. So a lot of people love those movies. And look, I was older when those came out, so there's no childhood nostalgia there. Although I have adult nostalgia for certain things.
Yeah.
Those first 3 Spider-Man movies, like the first 2 are pretty good.
Yeah.
They're okay. The third one,
so we'll see. We'll see how all this stuff plays out. Again, I don't think that the success of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, even though it has made $500 million, is going to silence the critics, which is unfortunate because it says a lot about maybe where Marvel might be headed. Fingers crossed. Go ahead. You got a comment.
And I'll tell you what, and maybe this is a much longer conversation for another day, but I don't think you're ever going to see a good Marvel film get a high grade on Rotten Tomatoes anymore. I don't think
but this one did, though. I mean, it was 85% with critics, 95% with audiences.
But here's the thing, and I meant critics, but here's the thing. It got 80% with critics, and I thought it was a really good film. I was saying just like a good film. This was a very good to great film. I think it's going to take a very good to great film to even get an 80, 85 on Rotten Tomatoes. Back in the day, like you had pretty good Marvel movies.
Forget critics, brother. Forget critics. Look at what the people say, right? 95% people like Guardians. That's what really matters, right? And I think that's why the fall off was only 47% from week 1 to week 2, because of actual people watching the movie and saying to people, this is a good movie. You should go see it. Forget the critics. Forget about it.
And you know what? But even like the audience score, like I agree with you about the people, but even that, like, those are fans going to see it. So are they predisposed to giving it a higher grade?
No, okay. I don't think they are predisposed.
Okay.
I don't know. Have you ever done a survey on Rotten Tomatoes?
I did one.
Yeah. And you watch a lot of movies and you've done it once.
Right. And you know why? Because I was so ticked off at the grades they were giving Shazam. I'm like, that was a good movie. It wasn't a great film, but it was good.
I should have known it was for Shazam. All right, Dave.
That's a whole other story.
I gotta wrap this up. We might have to have you come back on and talk about some of this other stuff. I'll have to do some research on critics and Rotten Tomatoes because I've never actually done any of that.
Oh, I have so many thoughts.
Where can people find you on the social media, brother?
Social media, they can find me on Instagram and YouTube. If they want to find me on YouTube in less than an hour, I'm going to go on Joe's Espresso Mail Call. And if they want to see me in person on Saturday, I'm going with Doug and the rest of the isolation team to do a signing in Connecticut for 3 Men in the Basement for their comic swap.
I just shared that on Instagram a short while ago. So very good stuff. Nice. Dave, it's always good to see you, brother. Thank you for sharing your point of view. We don't always agree on everything. And I think, again, that's perfectly fine. We both love comics. We love them in a different way. And that's perfectly fine to me. I still like you. I still have you back on, even though you don't agree with me.
Well, thanks.
It's good to see you, brother.
No, good to see you too. And to quote you, there is no wrong way to collect comics.
There is no wrong way. There isn't. As long as you're buying them, that's the right way. There you go.
Agreed.
Take care, brother.
You too.
All right. So I want to talk about one other thing that grates my cheese. One other thing that grates my cheese. This was a comment that was posted up on a video. And I don't think it's the first part of this thing. It says grading, at least the cover should be done by a scanner programmed to look for flaws. It's the only way all books can be graded evenly. Don't disagree with that, right? We've spoken about maybe using AI to do some of the grading to assist the graders. It's the second part of this that really grates my cheese. With the current system, you can send in a book and have it graded by someone who had a great night's sleep and is on the ball, or a person who tied one on the night before and has a hangover, making seeing straight painful. So grading fairly is impossible. We have to stop spreading nonsense. This is absolute nonsense. I mean, this is basically saying there are professional graders that work for reputable companies that are literally getting drunk every night, coming to work still intoxicated, grading comics with absolutely no checks or balances. This is essentially the assertion that this person is making, and I think that is nonsense. I really do. And I've seen this exact same comment repeated time and time again for years. There's absolutely no evidence. There is no evidence of professional alcoholics working for grading companies, showing up, handling, grading comics, being intoxicated. This is an example of just the nonsense that people repeat day after day, week after week, week after year, with absolutely no evidence to substantiate or support this type of stuff. The reality is that these are hardworking people that work for these grading companies. And it doesn't matter which grading company you want to talk about. These are hardworking people that do their jobs every single day. There are checks and balances in place to ensure that hopefully no single person is making an absolute grade on every single book that's going out with no one actually looking at it. Maybe it happens. I don't know. I've heard that there are checks and balances, that there are spot checks even, right? And it's not every book, but there are spot checks. There is some quality controls in place to look for these things. Could it be better? Absolutely. But the notion that these people are so incompetent that they're getting loaded every single night and then grading comics, it's just, I struggle. I struggle with people just repeating nonsense without any actual facts, no data to support it, no actual examples that they can point to. It is just someone's, I think, I believe that this is happening, therefore it is true, and they just repeat it time and time again. I find it to be nonsense. This is just something that grates my cheese just a little bit. One other thing I want to hip you guys to, what is this? I have a feeling James Gunn is going to tell the Superman Big Bird. I don't know what that story is, brother. Liger Style, you have to download me, sir. I'm not quite sure what that means. I'm gonna see whether the comments pumps up. Oh, so grates my cheese. It's just something that bothers me. I don't know where it came from. I probably heard it a while ago and it's just stuck in my head. It's just something that bothers me. So you guys have to remember, I produce a lot of content and I read literally every single comment that is left on a video. And I sometimes see patterns to the comments that people make. I see themes in what people say. It gives me ideas for videos. It gives me a feeling for how the comic book community is thinking, behaving, etc. That's why I read the comments. But there are some comments that just stick with me, where it's just like, there's no evidence that this actually happened. So why are you just repeating what you've heard other people say as if it were fact, right? There's a lot of that. There are a lot of people that literally just repeat what they've heard others say. We should stop that. We should stop just opening our mouths and letting other people's words come out. If you haven't seen the data, go see if you can find the data, right? Don't just repeat someone else's nonsense because it makes you look silly. It makes you look silly when you just say what someone else said because they said it, right? It's like, that's just not the way, that's not the way to do it. That's just really not the way to do it. So one other thing I wanted to hip you guys to, there's been a change, and I'm over time. I just realized the time I got on a little bit of a roll there. There's been a little bit of a change with the folks over at CGC. Effective May 16th, CGC has updated its mechanical errors return policy for clarity and consistency. It says all mechanical error submissions, regardless of error, must be received by CGC within 14 days of the submitter's receipt of that collectible. In addition, returns can only come from the original submitter of the collectible. Newton rings, which can occur naturally under certain conditions, do not qualify as mechanical error. This is a statement that is posted on the CGC website. I just wanted to bring this to people's attention that if you do indeed have a mechanical error where there's like debris inside the case, there's a scuff mark, there's a crack or something like that, you have a 14-day window in which to have CGC correct that mechanical error. If it's Newton rings are not covered. If they look at what you send back to them and they deem it not to be within the scope of their policy, they're going to charge you for the shipping, for the return shipping and all that kind of stuff. So if you have mechanical errors, you just want to be aware of these deadlines. And you want to just make sure you're submitting your stuff the right way. Again, this policy was posted up yesterday, and I would definitely encourage you guys to take a look at it. I personally have sent in at least a couple of books with mechanical errors. Label was incorrect on 2 cases. I had 2 issues where the labels were incorrect. I had a book that was an original book, and I sent in, I think, a reprint or something like that, a second print, and they had the labels reversed, so they had to fix that. And another case where they literally had a second print label on a first print book and vice versa. They corrected both of those things. I didn't pay anything. They got it turned around relatively quick. So I just wanted to make mention of this. They are changing various policies and procedures. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of things that are actually happening. So there you go. I am going to be dropping one other video this week. It will be coming out tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I've been getting a lot of questions from people about UV protection. And so I'm going to set the record straight on a couple of things related to sun damage and UV protection. I think it's a good thing that people continue to ask these questions because maybe it's a sign that more people are still finding their way to the hobby. And I think that that is a good thing. Tomorrow's video will be dropping. So I definitely want to encourage you guys to check that out. One last thing. If you haven't yet signed up for Patreon, I want to entice you guys to do so. We're going to probably be giving all Patreon members of a certain level something related to Isolation Issue 4. So stay tuned for that. But I'm also next month going to be giving away this. And there you go. The Invincible Compendium Issue 2 or Volume 2. This thing is massive. One lucky Patreon member is going to get this randomly. So sign up for Patreon. All levels of Patreon members are eligible to get, I don't know, that thing has to be at least 1,000 pages, but one lucky person is going to walk away with that. So I definitely want to encourage you guys, if you haven't signed up for Patreon, to go ahead and support the channel. All right. With that said, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have not subscribed to the channel, I want to encourage you to do so. We're getting closer to 21,000 subs, and you might just put me over the top. So go ahead, smash that button, turn on notifications. Also, if you have not yet liked this live stream, I definitely want to encourage you to do that. It is good for the algorithm. Last thing, my cousin, Brandon Isaac, is the one that does the intro and outro songs. There's a link in the description. Check him out. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms with pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combinations. You flying, we waiting. Indian style in the gold temple of greatness. When you follow the North Star, you coming for the education. This is my audio book. These rhymes are just the imagery. More like an audio graphic novel or a memoir about a young MC making timeless music with his mentor. I pray I grasp my letters. Nothing was meant to last forever.